Alrighty, and we are live. Welcome to another Lunch and Learn with Purse Strings. All of this month, we are talking about the theme of taking care of, or the cost of taking care of aging parents. And so we released our family emergency binder. And so today, instead of having a professional on, Barb and I are going to kind of walk through this emergency binder, talk about why it's so important to fill out. And if you haven't gotten that download, there should be a link in the group for you to download it. It is free. It's over 100 pages if you grab the one for a family of 4 plus. So grab it and we'll kind of dive into, why this is so important, why we kind of created it. And for those who are new to the Purse Strings group, Purse Strings is all about providing tips, tricks, pieces of advice on how to be financially fearless. But then when you start planning for retirement, need Medicare, updating that will and trust, maybe you're getting divorced or you got an inheritance, we have top tier financial professionals willing, ready, and able to serve you. We call those our Purse Strings approved professionals, and those are usually who we have on our live today. But they're all in our directory on our site, so you can always turn to Purse Strings whenever you need a professional to go to. As you guys know, this is my partner and my mom, Dr. Barb Provo, who we run Purse Strings together and really helped create this emergency binder.
Yeah, this is so fun to be having our own live together, Maggie, because we don't get to do this very often, but there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes and a lot of thinking through how can we best help our female following get in front of everything that they're up against on a daily basis. And you and I know that we hear stories all the time about women who, they get the call, mom fell down, or I got to take some time off work because somebody is sick, or, they need to attend to the needs of the families. And what I found in my own experience, caring for my own parents who have since passed, but now for my mother-in-law, and we hear these stories all the time. You need information. You need to know about, who's going to care for them. You need to know what are their medications, who to call, what else needs to happen on their behalf. What other appointments do they have that need to be scheduled or rescheduled? So we know we have relatives that have stepped in and taken over for their parents because something happened. And what we always say is it's best to be prepared for something that hopefully doesn't happen instead of being unprepared for something that most likely will happen. And as we've been talking about all month, the swell of the baby boomers, it's going through retirement now. So remember the stat, we had 10,000 people every day will turn age 65 for the next 7 years. Mm-hmm. So that whole swell is now going into retirement or in retirement. And so there's going to be a lot of caregiving responsibilities that will be needed. And the other stat is typically, who does this fall on, Maggie?
The oldest daughter.
The oldest daughter, or the daughter possibly living closest to the parents. Mm-hmm. So we think about this two ways. We think about how can we help put this information together for our own parents if we're going to need it forthcoming. Mm-hmm. How can we do this for ourselves so that our children have this information in their hands as well? So we thought through everything that would be really necessary for people to have at their fingertips. And we just put it in a document and it's categorized. So if you think, wow, it's a lot, right? It's a lot, but you can think through, well, I'm going to start with this bucket and we'll go through all the different topics that are in there and how to go ahead and fill it out. I will say, it's an investment to download this and to print it. And what we suggest, as Maggie has done, print it and bind it.
Plus, where you get that, your nice, costs about $40, but the document's free. You're welcome. Yeah. And really to ease that anxiety, $40. But here's the thing is you have to fill it out, which as we can see, I haven't done yet, which then really makes it no good.
Yeah. So we're going to walk through how to do it and why this is so important. So why don't you fire it up, Maggie, and we'll take a look.
There's just one point, otherwise I want to touch on first is it can seem very overwhelming. So we can point out some pages that are great to start with. But we also hear a lot of families don't want to have these conversations at all.
Mm.
So we try to think that, this could be a good document just to print off for yourself, show mom and dad that you're doing this for you. Do they want their own copy? Or, do they want to take a look and kind of start the conversation? This came across my desk and maybe you want to take a look. Whatever way you can ease that into the conversation, we think this could be a good kind of conversation starter to kind of bring this top of mind and give you some direction of what to cover and what is important.
Perfect. Perfect. Well said.
So let's do a little of this. So this is our cover of our family emergency binder. Oh, this is touchy. Sorry. Whoop. I don't know how this. Give me 1 second.
We have color coded it so that there's the table of contents is really great. So want to just go through the table of contents first? You had it up there.
I know. Give me 1 second. Let me look at the screen.
Yeah, the way that we created this was we asked people who've been in this situation for feedback, like what was really, really important for them to know, what was kind of the go-to information that they needed to know first, second, third, and what would be the best categories for them to start with. Way to go.
So let's zoom this out a little bit. But we can see that we start with kind of our emergency plan right when we grab the binder. So we get our medical plan, our contacts, and any security access that we need right away and have that information.
Yeah, and that's important because let's say something happens and you need people to call because things are happening, right? Life goes on and you need to know who should be called first. And it's so important to have that in order. So then family profiles. Again, what was so important, I think, Maggie, about this was remember when we talked to Vivian Villers, one of our purse strings approved professionals, she talked about how there was a special needs child that needed some assistance and something happened to his mother who couldn't pick him up from the bus because she got in a car accident. And so it would have been so helpful, she said, if somebody knew kind of what was the child's medications, what was the routine, what were things that needed to be in place for this child, which is really super important because it was a sensitive issue. But these also have other details around each child. I think this is up to a family of 4. But look, what else do we have under family profiles, Maggie?
Is your furry friends.
Mm-hmm. So important, right? Yeah, your pet profiles. So do you have a dog walker? Is there certain medication for them? Who's the veterinarian? Things like that.
And then moving on, we kind of have our financial information, which is great to kind of start gathering that information that you have, especially I know some of the older generation has multiple accounts at many different banks. So this is a great opportunity to start gathering some of that information and bringing it all into one central location. Even if it's not all the money in one spot, it's just a location to have all this information. So really any financial contracts, we have a lot of different, bank accounts, investment statements, pensions, 401k plans, whatever you have going on, there's a line item for it, as well as any asset accounts that you have as well.
Wonderful. Yeah. And then, just the home and auto information, your homeowner's insurance, your auto insurance, it's typically with a P&C agent. Who is that person? Let's say there was, a tornado or something, a tree fell on the house. Who's the go-to for that? And also the other things around the house. What are the utilities for the house? What is the online access to any codes or anything that you need to get into the house? So anything around home and auto, in terms of also, lease documentation, auto loans, things like that.
Then moving on, we just have a section of all those important documents that we're going to need in life. So anything about, your birth certificate or your citizenship or your passport copies, any school documents or military leave papers. as well as any, your marriage license or a divorce document, and then any of your medical and end of life information, as well as your business financials, if you have that information as well, which if you do have a business, you're probably going to need a couple more papers even to make this document fully, because owning a business, is its own household in itself.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's a good way to put it. Yeah, and what I love about this part is we've run this by so many people, and we were like, I forgot that we needed to add this document or that document. So it's really just a good checklist to say, hey, does mom or dad have any of this information, or where's my own marriage license? I don't even know where that's at, but it's a good kind of hunt and peck to find out where all this information is and put it in one location. Sometimes it's online files that we say create and put an online file. Sometimes it's paper documentation, so you should have a paper file, and then you should cross-reference, where everything is. So this again is a great checklist.
And then last there is we have kind of our end of life planning. So where our estate plan is, or any final preparations that we have questions, we want to make sure our message really gets across when we pass what we want all our information to do or not do. And so it's really getting that final document, those final documents in order and making sure everything is really set.
Wonderful. Yeah, so let's take a look at it. So we have a section break for each one of them. So as we said, we're starting with emergency planning, and there you go. So you can put who's the person, their primary doctor. So you put the name of that person, their preferred hospital, anything around their health insurance, secondary health insurance, and their emergency contacts. So this is all really good, important information. Of course, allergies, so important. There's so many different allergies people have now. So what is the allergy list? What are they allergic to? And then, of course, medication list. This is so important. I know when people are coming into the hospital, they always want to make sure there's a list of the medications that they're on. That's one of the first things they ask for. So this is so important. And Maggie, go ahead.
I was going to say, I feel like this is really great if you're bringing, grandma to the hospital, you have that information. But this is also really good, if you have a babysitter who's coming over and all of a sudden you need some of this information. They know the allergies, they know the list of medications. So some of these sections might be shown to different people, but that way you do have that one comprehensive list that you don't need to rewrite every time.
Perfect. Yeah. Power of attorneys. We talk about this so much at Purse Strings, how everyone needs 2 power of attorneys. One is medical and one is financial. So who are they, right? So writing that name down, who are they, and any notes about it, where are they located? And then who are the medical people, right? Who are their doctors? Who are their dentists? Who are their allergists? And then legal and financial, who are their attorneys to reach out to? So this part I really love. And sometimes I just say, maybe this is the best place to start, Maggie, is kind of on this phone tree. What do you think?
I definitely agree. That kind of sets up what everyone's responsibilities are. You've kind of thought about it quickly. And so, who can kind of run down that phone tree and make these calls. And it is a long phone tree, just in case you have a lot of loved ones.
Yeah. And so you can just hand that to somebody and say, on my behalf, could you reach out to these people and tell them this, and just hand them that document.
Right. And then moving on, we have any emergency access. If we need to get into a lockbox, there's an alarm code or a garage code where maybe some extra car keys or house keys are. And you can just put the location of those extra items so others know
where to find that stuff. Yeah, I mean, you have to think about, if you're not there with this information, what are the directions somebody can just pick up and say, okay, here's where the keys are, here's the alarm code. Somebody may have to get into your house, things like that.
And then moving on, we have a spot for every family member, some different profiles. And this is our document for just 2 people. We have another one that's for 4 people. So you can put all their information on there and really get, this, really good information that you don't always have written down somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really important. Just to document everything.
And then if you have any dependent elders as well, you can put that information down so you have some of that as well.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes grandma or grandpa's living with you and you need that information too.
And then, of course, we have stuff for your pets and their feeding schedule and their behaviors, just in case anything happens, they'll get everything that they need.
Can't forget about our puppies and our kitties.
And then any medical conditions you need to know about or any allergies, just so everything is really logged down. And you can even just use this medication schedule if you're starting to take care of someone, whatever it is. There's a lot of great pages on here you might just want a couple copies of.
Yeah, and I'll add that, one of our women in our community came back and said, this is amazing because she said her own mother-in-law was sick and in the hospital and they didn't have any of this information. And she wished that she had had this at her fingertips prior to all that happening. So it's like we said, it's a lot, and you can just pick and choose what you think is most important for you to put in right now, especially if somebody is sick, getting elderly, and you're going to be responsible for their health and oversight. This is a great document to start with.
And so we don't need to go through the whole thing. As you can see, it's very thorough. And even on here, I love this, family health history. I need to fill all of this out. So when I go to the doctor as an older woman, I can remember all the things that I need to kind of be aware of that my parents may have had.
Yeah, that's a good point because they ask you a lot of those questions and you don't always know. I oftentimes have to go back and ask my older sisters, did mom have this or that?
Right.
But you don't remember, and you don't really talk about it, but it's good to have that family history down there when they ask you those questions. So yeah, it's really, really thorough. Yeah, organ donor status, that's important too. And then, the financial information. Of course, this is what Purse Strings focuses on a lot. Who's their financial advisor, how to contact them, or do they have a financial planner, one or the other or both? Accountant, somebody who does their taxes. Usually the PNC agent is somebody who's different as well. Also life insurance, that could be, your financial advisor or PNC agent. Long-term care can be someone separately. So who are all these people that are overseeing these different contracts that you've purchased? And here's our little advertisement that says, look, if you don't know or don't have these people, then we have them right here at Purse Strings. And it talks about how to best engage with Purse Strings and find those financial professionals.
And then like we were talking about before, we have all the bank accounts. You can put, the account type, your logins, your security questions. So this stuff you definitely want to make sure you keep private, or, not always shared with maybe the babysitter. But this is just great information to have, especially, if you're helping take care of mom or you're the power of attorney, to have some of this information of the investment accounts, maybe real estate that they own, safety deposit boxes. I feel like a lot of those are probably just left unanswered or storage units.
Right. I know there's a lot that people forget about, and credit cards. And you see those things in the paper, all that money that goes unclaimed because people forget that they've had it. Right. Pensions is something, if you've changed jobs and you haven't done anything with a pension account or moved your 401k, people forget they have it. So that's a good way to kind of do an inventory.
Definitely. Yeah. You don't want anyone's 401k just left out there. And then we have all our home and auto information like we were talking about. So you have all your vehicle and your vehicle's information, where the loan is and any insurance information you have on the car. And we have that for a couple cars, just, and then for your houses as well. If you have a homeowners association, that information, if you have a mortgage, you can put that information as well as your information for your homeowner's insurance. And then personal umbrella insurance, if you have that as well. Life insurance, and you can see the benefit amount, the policy numbers, the payment method. So it should really be really thorough that anyone else can kind of pick this up and understand it. But you also want to keep it kind of private.
Yeah, and you're really, chief operating officer of your family, right? So there's a lot that goes on when you have more people in your family. They're all different stages of life, and you're buying different products and services and cars and houses and, insurance. This is a really good, thorough checklist to say, wow, we can't forget that we have this insurance or that insurance. And to go through and make sure that it's all of this information is accounted for. If nothing else, this is a really great checklist to go through. And, maybe it's something you do at the end of each month and make sure if there are changes, you go in and update it. But this is very comprehensive. And if you could fill something like this out, you'd be miles ahead of when anything can happen. Heating and cooling, electric, yep, all of this. It's all needed. I mean, like landscaping, we don't have to do that, but we were told that our heating system will probably need to be replaced in a few years, so that's something to think about. And we know who checked it and what date they checked it, things like that.
Even some of these things like, getting into our Verizon account is going to be important if anything happened and we need to change, who's owning the payments. I know they're always so secure on who gets into the account every time I go. So knowing the account number and their magic question is essential.
Yeah, for sure. If you have a housekeeper, caregivers, anything miscellaneous. So yeah, very comprehensive. And really, when you think of it, wow, it's a lot that you need to keep track of and just to keep it in your head.
And then some of this online access is really great just to show some of those websites, username and password. If you want someone to kind of take care of your social media after you pass, just to make sure that's protected, or any of those other accounts out there that we know we make so many, just to have someone kind of go in there and clean up after us.
That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot that we use. And this is where we're talking about the different documents that you should have at your fingertips. Citizenship, military, school, marriage and divorce papers, medical end-of-life papers, so like a living will, things like that. Yeah, everything that's around your insurance or your deeds to your home or to your cars, things like that. Like if you own it, where do you put that information? Because if you want to sell it to somebody, you're going to need that documentation as well.
Yeah, definitely. And then last but not least, we have our end of life planning, which is so essential and something we want to make sure everyone does. Get their power of attorneys, wills, and trust if they need them. And then really know where these documents are. These documents we always recommend putting in like a fireproof folder or something like that they won't be damaged. Healthcare power of attorney, financial power of attorney, and where those items really are.
Yeah. And believe me, you're going to need, take it from experience, several copies of that, because people will want copies of that. Estate planning, your beneficiaries, all of that. Obituary information, if you want things that you want stated in your obit, things like that. Now's your opportunity.
Stating some achievements or affiliations would be great to kind of just have already written down, and you don't want to forget anything so important while you're just, trying to get through that time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And a lot of people do, buy plots or submit information for however they want to be buried. And this is where the go-to information can be, so people know what your
veteran information, great information just to have noted as history.
Yeah. Yeah. And they'll come to the funeral and things like that. So
I think we're kind of done there.
Yeah, I think it's pretty comprehensive. It sounds like a lot. It seems overwhelming, but when you think about it, everybody has many, many, many of those things and those documents, and I'm sure they're scattered around here, hither and yon. So if you can at least find one central location to have a log of it, this is what we're saying, get in front of this type of information, because at some point you're going to have to be responsible to take over and step in. And there's nothing worse than having to dig through boxes or desks or things like that to try to find documentation, because, the hospital needs it, or the minister needs it, or the attorney needs it, or they need to sell the house and you've got to find the deed, or whatever it might be. There's nothing worse. So if you have your, take the time needed, and this is not something that can possibly be done in a day. This is something that's kind of a family activity, if you will, to make sure that all of this is in order. So it was a labor of love to put this together, but we found it so important to be able to share this information and to provide it to our communities, because we know this falls on women.
Mm-hmm.
We want to make sure women have this at their fingertips so that they are prepared.
Definitely. So yeah, make sure you grab a copy, you print it out, you fill it out, because it's only as good as the information in there. And yeah, join the conversation. Let's be proactive when it comes to these different things. And we'll be back here again next week talking about more information about, taking care of aging parents. And we're going to have, a woman come on and tell kind of her true story and kind of the impacts that has made. So jump into the conversation, reach out if you have any questions, and let's be financially fearless.
Thanks, everyone. See you next week.
Bye. Have a great day.
Bye.